Welcome to Things I Wish I Knew, the podcast from Thinking Faith, a work of the Jesuits in Britain. I'm Julia, I'm in my early 30s, and I used to live in a Jesuit young adult community. We all live hectic lives and often don't get time to reflect on what's happening both to us and around us. This podcast is meant to help you to take a moment to stop and to think about where you are, where you're going, and where your relationship with God fits into it all. Every week I'll meet a new guest who tells me about something they experienced which has changed their lives forever. By talking about the things they wish they'd known at the time, we'll explore the idea that God is in all things, and we'll talk about the part that faith plays in navigating life challenges. So today I was speaking to Delphine, and Delphine is talking about her experience of dating. And what I loved about this episode is how she talked about the importance of loving yourself, which is something that I think we're so often forgot in modern society. So, Delphine, how long have you been dating?
Gosh, I had my first boyfriend when I was like 17. So a long time, almost 20 years. That's kind of actually makes me feel a bit sick.
So do you think 17 is too young to have a boyfriend then?
I do personally, yeah, because again, I wasn't dating with intention. It was very much this point of I just wanted the attention, the validation. It felt like a cool thing. Everyone was getting coupled up at college. And yeah, it was really that whole concept of like falling in love, like you just fell into something. There was no prior thought about it. And it definitely wasn't dating for marriage because I wasn't ready at that time. So yeah, it was very much more just like getting stuck in that social scene and it being like a status symbol. Like I just feel like at that point in your kind of later teenage years, everyone's like, when are you going to get a boyfriend? And yeah, the social pressure around that is a lot.
I actually remember at 16 or 17 watching a TV program, and on the TV program them saying if you haven't had a boyfriend by the time you're 16, then there's something wrong with you. And that was, I think it was that wedding or something weird. And I remember being taken really back about that. So I imagine if you'd heard that, you'd have had a similar experience.
Absolutely. And it was just so normalized and so desensitized that actually like entering a relationship when you really don't understand what a relationship is, when you don't know the definition of love, which I certainly didn't, was just so premature. And led to a lot of drama, a lot of teenage drama as well.
So now, 20 years later, as you said, not me.
Almost
20 years later. What approach to dating do you take now? Do you like go looking in person or do you go online?
So actually, I put myself on a dating fast for a couple of years recently. And the reason I did that is because I think when I first came back to my Catholic faith and suddenly, I was reading theology of the body and all these amazing things, understanding that love is to, will the good of another, I was a little bit obsessed with love. I was like, oh my gosh, I just love love. And now that I know the meaning, and especially I've been really blessed because my church community is so full of amazing families and couples. And I was like, I want that. And I realized that I was idolizing marriage. So while like reversion, I just didn't have a clue what I was really doing. It was very much fumbling through a dating life. After that, I think I became so hyper-focused that it became actually quite unhealthy. And I wasn't actually going forward with intention. I was still in that peer pressure, just from a Catholic standpoint, like, why are you in your 30s and you're not married? And it was a really difficult time where I just felt under so much pressure. And I don't think I was actually dating with intention. So then had this dating fast, which was really good for me because I think it was me saying to God, everyone is telling me this is crazy. Like, you're in your 30s, you really need to settle down. But I wanted to kind of turn to God and say, I trust in your timing. I trust in your path for me. And I'm not going to force this anymore. So no online dating, no dating apps, no going to events just in case I might meet someone. It was very much like, you know what? I just want to live a great full life. I'm going to go to something if it interests me. And I'm going to lean into my own hobbies, my own kind of self-care. And that was really healthy for me because I think I fell in love with myself for the first time ever.
That is such a good place to be in. I was just thinking as you were speaking, there's quite often that Catholic stereotype that maybe more on young women than young men, but they go to events to meet their husband and they believe they're just going to walk into a room and they're going to find him. They're going to like look across the room. Their eyes are going to match and meet even, and then they're going to fall in love and then they're going to get married 6 months later. And I remember talking to actually quite a few Catholic female friends as well about that, and thinking that isn't that healthy attitude to have, actually, if you think about it.
It's actually objectification. And I think for me, that was really hard to understand, because physical objectification is really clear. And I understand that it's very black and white. But I don't think we realize how much we can objectify someone emotionally, or just, yeah, exactly. Like, I want to be married. And then you go into an event, you're like, that guy's so cute. Oh my gosh, is he my husband? Oh, look at the way he offered me pizza or opened the door for me. And then all of a sudden it's like, instead of waiting to see and to uncover and discover like that man, you're just having this crazy monologue in your mind where you're like, is this him? Oh, like I'm wearing blue and he's wearing blue. So it must be, that is meant to be. And I think that, there's this whole phrase of like emotional chastity, but I really do see that whole element of just seeing men as potential husbands actually does have a really negative impact. And it makes us all a bit weird in these social situations where I think there can be social awkwardness and just so much pressure, where you feel like you're sizing each other up rather than just having a heart of receptivity, going openly and just being like, you know what, I just want to make some new friendships, some new connections. So yeah, I completely agree with you.
So let's take a step back and think about when you became Catholic. What was that moment for you?
I think I had this real moment where I was like, oh wow, I've been doing all of this completely wrong. Like, I felt like I've been swimming against the current and I've been making life really hard on me. And not just in my romantic relationships, in the way I was, valuing myself. Like, I was very much addicted to toxic productivity. I saw my value in what I did, not who I was. I was all about really like feelings. So, it was like, oh, how do I feel with this person, rather than anything logic or reason or really vision or values based. So I think I kind of was like, oh God, this is an amazing manual for life that I just have not been following. So I think I had this real moment of just, oh dear, I've been doing this and approaching this quite wrong, which was really refreshing, but also terrifying, just because I was like, I don't know how to approach things like this, and how to, even like dressing femininely but modestly, or like understanding about modesty of heart and these concepts. I was just like, this is so alien to me. Like, I grew up on all of the rom-coms, so like my vision of just like life and career and everything. I think I felt this moment of feeling a little bit robbed. Like, I was like, oh, I've just not been living in the full truth. So there was some sadness, I think, and sorry there, but also excitement of like, okay, now I begin.
So how did that change your approach to dating?
It changed everything for me. So like, I started putting in place like a few kind of like boundaries that were self-imposed just because of my own history and just my knowledge of myself, so like really trying to ensure that I have a solid foundation of friendship before really thinking of anything else. Because I think secular dating or worldly dating, it can be very, especially if you meet someone on an app, there's no opportunity to just be friends, because you've really met in this very much like, you're single, I'm single, we want a relationship. So I wanted to get a little bit away from checklist dating. I wanted to get away from really going towards feelings as well, like just being led by that. And I think something that modern dating's gotten really wrong is using physical affection to build an emotional connection. It's like the wrong order of things. So that was something I was very conscious of as well. And yeah, I mean, honestly, like learning the definition of love blew my mind, because I was like, oh, it's to will the good of another, to like want their good almost, above my own. And I was like, that's just not how I've been approaching it. Because before, I think it was from a very selfish place of, well, I like having a boyfriend and it's very convenient. You can go to restaurants and you can try 2 dishes instead of 1, and all these kind of things that, in so many ways, relationships are very naturally a lovely thing to be in. So it's no wonder that obviously the world does gravitate towards trying to force it quite quickly. But yeah, so I think it just changed everything, my whole approach.
What do you think modern dating can learn from what you've learned through the Catholic values and through that definition of love?
Yeah, so I read a book that I think is from like the 1930s or something. It was given to me by an amazing family at church. It's called Family Life by Father Anselm Viano. And in it, and this is written by a priest, he talks about the 4 components of like a successful relationship, a successful marriage. And it was really good for me to read, because I think one thing that I maybe was a bit misled about when I was learning about love in theory was that love is a choice. I was very much like, I loved reading 3 to Get Married by Fulton Sheen. And in it, he talks about love is a choice and it's something that you choose every day. And in that, I thought, okay, I can just choose to love someone, like, you know, not necessarily need that attraction or that spark, which I think the modern world really places such a heavy value on. But then I realized that I'd actually missed, in that book, Fulton Sheen actually says, like, there is a mystery that presupposes the choice. Like, there is something that's going to draw you to that person, that's going to gravitate you to that person. And in the book Family Life, Father Anselm, you know, the 4 components are, he does include passion and he includes emotional attraction, which I love. And then he says conviction and suitability. So for me, it's like, you know, the modern dating world is very much about like, how does this person make you feel? Like, do you have the spark? Are you, you know, do you have chemistry? While this book is really saying like, yes, chemistry is important, but do you share the same values? Do you share the same vision for your life? Like, are you suitable? And also, are you convicted? Do you want the same? Because I think a lot of modern dating, it's about maintaining your kind of pride. So you never act eager or keen. You never actually say that I really actually like you and I see, you know, I'm dating for marriage. That would be like terrible to say in the modern dating era, because it's too much pressure. And it's like, it's just not a cool thing. You know, you need to play hard to get. You need to be detached. And I do agree with being detached from the outcome. I think that is good. But I think when people are playing it too cool and they're playing these games, you know, so many dating coaches there, you know, saying all these like tactics for the beginning of texting relationships, you're training someone to communicate with you in a style that isn't sustainable. So I think that what the Catholic faith has really shown me is that you are very upfront about your values and your vision. And yes, you try and find someone that you have that attraction to, but that everything else is holistic. And reading that from a priest, I was like, oh, thank you. Yes, because that was definitely something I struggled with slightly. Like, oh, do I need to be attracted to my spouse if he's a wonderful man and he's a good man of God? And that was something I think was an overcorrection on my part from coming from secular dating, which can be very much led only on that kind of physicality and the attraction part.
I mean, I was just thinking about attraction is great, as you've said, but if you want to have a marriage that lasts 50 years long, there's got to be something more there, because eventually looks fade in any way that they do when you get older. So yeah, there's definitely got to be something more there than just the physical attraction.
That's why I loved the term emotional attraction. I had never actually heard that. And that's why online dating really doesn't do that justice, because sometimes there's going to be a guy who might not be your physical type, your kind of like usual type, but he's got a certain swag, or he's funny, or he's really kind, or he's really generous. And you're like, oh, I feel, you know, I'm feeling some feelings. And, you know, they do say for women, it can take us up to 3 dates to realize if we do find someone attractive, because we are so run by, you know, how does this man, does he make me feel safe? And, you know, is he nice to others? Is he, you know, potentially a good provider, and all these kind of things. So definitely, I know that attraction isn't like be all and end all, but I like that there is an element of acknowledging that it's a gift from God to be attracted to your spouse. And that attraction is going to, you know, evolve over time as well.
Definitely. I was just thinking about somebody I went on a date with, and I saw them treat somebody not very nicely, and then all of the attraction to them disappeared. You'll be glad to know it's not the person I'm dating right now. One of the things I find, or have found, with dating online is older generations and their kind of judgment of me, in that they found somebody in their church or in university or wherever. So they found a person in person, and they don't really understand why now everybody goes on online dating, because they're just like, oh, can you not find a nice boy at church or something? Have you found that as well?
Yeah, I think generationally it's quite wild. I know one of my best friend's parents, they met at a bus stop. And what are the chances that someone's going to talk to you at a bus stop now? You know, we're all in our phones. People have these like wireless headphones. It's just not a sociable space anymore. And we live very isolated lives. We're no longer in the villages. We no longer have these communities. And for me, that's something that I think is so incredibly sad. And, you know, I run a befriending charity exactly for this, because I see the older generation are like, where has our community gone? And, you know, we try to bring together people with dogs to like get these older people out in their local green spaces. A lot of them don't even know where their local parks are because they've not had a reason to go. And I feel the same with the church, in the sense of, you know, we really should be dating in community. Like, I'm all for matchmaking. So I love that, you know, because it's quite amazing. Even in London with like the young adult community, if you're not going to specific churches, you can miss a whole cohort of people. So if you start having different friends and then they start thinking, oh, I met this person who I think you'd actually get on with, I would love to see more of that culture, because I think it's really healthy. And I think we all, in a way, idolize the did you meet in real life? That kind of origin story. However, like, I've been to some amazing Catholic weddings where they met and it's like, how did you meet? It's like Hinge, which I know isn't even a Christian dating app. But so I do see the older generation, they're a little bit perplexed, because they're just like, you guys are just living behind your screens. And of course, it does seem a bit like shopping list dating. And I do think 2D profiles are so hard to get a real feel for that person. And I think people can have such bad dating fatigue and indecision, because I didn't have much luck online, so I didn't really try for very long, because I found I was becoming too, like, if it's the right word, like scrupulous. I was like, okay, he ticks these boxes but not this. Oh, do I actually meet him? And I actually just found the concept exhausting, because it's like you could potentially go on a coffee date every single day. And emotionally, when you go on a date that doesn't go well, it's really hard. And sometimes you can just be like, well, maybe God, this isn't my vocation. And I'm putting all this time into dating, which can feel like a job. So I think that there's like a healthy balance, but yeah, definitely that generation, they don't get it. And, you know, because they did live more in community, and I'd like to see that reemerge in our digital age.
And also it's about if you don't understand how online dating works, you don't understand that a lot of effort goes into like the pre-date. Like, you have to chat for quite a while with a person, getting to know them before you can even go on an actual physical date with them. And that takes so much effort. You're reminded me of 2 years ago of how draining I found online dating, and just the relief that I don't have to do it anymore.
You're so blessed. But yeah, it takes so much capacity. And I think that there can also be a temptation to just not try at all.
Yeah.
And to isolate yourself. I didn't realize that actually could be like a temptation, but it's true, because it's tiring. And also the disappointment, you know, there's a proverb that says hope deferred is so painful, it makes the heart sick. So, you know, if you're excited about a date, then you go and it was like, oh, I didn't feel anything, or he was really mean, or whatever it is. It's hard, and I don't want to downplay that. It is draining.
Yeah, I often talk about like how I do a month on a time. So I'd like go on a dating app for a month, chat to a few people at once to make that month worthwhile, meet up with maybe less than I was talking to, and then at the end of it come back having had some not great dates, and then just finding it would be a couple more months before I'd even consider online dating or any dating again. Have you had that challenge, and how have you got through that challenge?
I think I've actually not really done that much online dating. Maybe it's a generational thing, because when I helped to co-host a speed dating event at the Oratory, and for our like 20 to 30 cohort, it was so interesting, because about, I want to say 75% of the women there had never been asked out on a date in real life. Like, they'd only ever been asked out online. And I just thought, oh my gosh, where have we gone to, where people are only willing to take the chance when it's a very explicit, like, I am single, I'm on the dating app, I'm, you know, receptive to being asked. You know, whatever happened to taking the chance and just seeing someone and saying, you know, would you like to grab a coffee? And I think that we have become so allergic to rejection, and that we're not willing to take those chances anymore. So I do think that the online dating scene, it seems like a safer way, and it seems like there's going to be more success rate as well. But yeah, I can see that it does. I mean, I think your strategy of taking like a month on, a month off is actually really good, because you have to refill your cup, because otherwise it gamifies it a bit. And also, think about the dopamine receptors and all the ways that these apps are designed for our brains to be addicted. I do think it's really adorable, because some of the Christian dating apps, they have like a swiping limit. So after like 10 swipes, you get Bible scripture like thrown at your screen. And I'm like, good for you, because it just reminds you, wow, every one of these persons like is a soul, like is an immortal soul. And I think sometimes we can forget that.
Because you were talking about the rejection, and quite often you were saying about women being, so was it 75% of women haven't been asked on an actual date? So then the expectation is that the man will ask the woman on the date. But can women ask men on the date?
I mean, absolutely they can. I'm a big fan of dropping the hanky, which I love is just like this Victorian term. But how can we do that in the modern day? In really like encouraging men to make those ask and those invites. And I do have a couple of friends who actually ask their husbands out first, because sometimes men can need a really, really clear green light to even have the confidence to ask you for a coffee. And, they are having really happy and holy marriages. I think for me, I really value a man being very intentional in pursuing me, and also being able to read kind of my signs that I'm open to being asked out. But I absolutely agree. I don't think it needs to be that way. And I think we really need to just raise a culture where it's more normalized to just encourage. But if like women say, oh, did you see that amazing exhibition at National Gallery? I'd love to go. It's like not a direct invite, but it's well, hopefully it's such a clear hint, but then we're all women in this room, so maybe it's not.
My experience is that that's not a clear enough hint, I would say. It needs to be more explicit than that.
It's true. Actually, a guy friend did say to me, he was like, you literally need to have a flashing green light and like hit me over the head with it. So I do also, I see the benefits that we as women can help to shift that culture as well, to make it more IRL.
So if I'm right, the dropping the hanky is coming back from the Victorian times, where women would drop their hanky in front of the man they were interested in, so that he would then notice her, and then he would proceed to then court her. Is that right?
I think it was more of a conversation opener. So I suppose in those days, obviously, men and women didn't really just speak. So it was like, oh, that's a potential suitor. I will drop my hanky. Then he has an opening, an entrance to talk to me, like, excuse me, miss, you dropped your hanky. And then all of a sudden you can open a conversation. I don't know the history well enough to know if it went straight from that to courtship, but hopefully it was more just having that moment of entry of just like, okay, we can have a conversation starter. And, for me, like, I'm such a big proponent of, I think dogs are great. I think dogs are great icebreakers. So it's almost like that version. You need like an icebreaker to just help a conversation to come to be.
That's such I want to be like, how can we help women drop the hanky? I feel like there's a whole like event that could be around that as well. And 100%. Also give men the confidence to ask women out, or encourage women to ask men out.
Well, I actually asked the men of my Instagram that question. I was like, how can women drop the hanky? And this was the first time I ventured on YouTube. I just thought I'd push that video out, and it did really well, because I guess people are really interested in that. And the answers were very much like, women just need to be so clear, exactly what you were hinting at before. So that was interesting for me to hear, because I think sometimes we try to be poetic about dropping the hanky and like cute about it, but we just actually have to be so explicit, so clear, just like, yeah, make it really just like obvious that, you are open to being asked out.
I am just thinking of the men that I know in my life who have been, we're going back to online dating, but it can be not online, who have found dating quite mentally harming, because they don't have the sense that women are interested in them. And have you got any thoughts on how they can have more confidence? Not even necessarily to like ask a woman out, but just that they can have more self-belief. Because you earlier, and I really loved it that you talked about you took your break from dating and then you found your way to love yourself. And I feel like that's a part of culture we don't have anymore, that quite often people don't have that love for themselves. So what's your advice to people to help them love themselves a bit more?
Yeah, I think with any kind of, quote unquote dating advice, it really does start by like living with purpose and living on purpose. And that actually doesn't have anything to do with dating. Like having interests makes you interesting. It gives you confidence. It's like if you're leaning into the things that give you joy, you are building this person in yourself that is, enjoyable to be around. And I like to say that, of course, this season of waiting can be incredibly painful and there can be some really dark moments, but you should try to build a life for yourself where it's only interruptible for the right person, in the sense of, you are having that joy from community. You really do feel called to the vocation of family life, and you have children in your life. Maybe they're nieces, maybe they're nephews or friends' children's godchildren. You're building up this confidence through living what you feel God is calling you to. Maybe that's, to nurture, to love, and you're doing that in other ways. So for me, I found that in volunteering, in, trying to be the best aunt I can be, in my godchildren, in creative pursuits. And I think it got to a point where I was like, actually, this life, it's okay. Even if this is it, I can still have some really joyful moments. And that just gives you confidence, and also it rids you of this desperation that it's another person that's going to make me happy. I think when you realize that it's not another person that's going to do that, it just gives you so much more confidence and self-worth and value. And that is so hot and that's so attractive. And you can see that in another person when you meet them and you're like, wow, yeah, they're not living the vocation that they thought they would right now, but gosh, they're living a good life. And so I really think, optimize your life so it's as joy-filled as you can make it, obviously within your control, and relying on God and God to really show you that your inherent worth is there from the very fact that you exist.
How do you deal with rejection?
I think seeing it as redirection is a lot better. I've had loads of instances in my life where God has had to very obviously just slam a door in my face, and it felt so painful at the time, but then like in hindsight you're like, okay, that made sense, that was the right move, that was the right decision, that wasn't the right person. I think it comes from a place of resilience and humility to just be like, okay, like it doesn't change my value, it doesn't change how much I love myself, it doesn't change my self-confidence. Of course it's going to hurt, it's not going to be like, oh, that felt great. Like rejection is painful and it stings, but I think we need to be able to rebound from it. Like, okay, that's fine, but again, like it doesn't change my value in God's eyes. It should not change your value in your own eyes either. And there should be like an element of letting go of that pride, because unfortunately we're human and maybe people are going to gossip about it. Maybe people are going to know about it. And so I think we really just need to be rooted in our own self-love to be like, you know what? I took a chance. I shot my shot and it didn't work this time, but God's plan is greater and that's fine. And also, in the grand scheme of things, you'll be able to see, like I love this saying, I don't know who said it, about how our lives are like this tapestry and the back of a tapestry just looks a mess, like the threads are everywhere. But then when you turn it around, it's something really beautiful. And I like to think of that anytime I just have a crazy mishap in my life. I'm like, it's all right, because the thread somewhere, it's going to make sense. So yeah, rejection, seeing it as redirection, I think is a really positive mindset to have.
So where have you found God in your dating life?
In my dating life, I think a lot of it is in understanding my own value and knowing like, okay, I'm a daughter of God, and that almost being like the standard, because I think that's really helpful, because then if someone, mistreats you or they're rude to you, it's like, well, that's actually not okay. And I think that's a good way to just have boundaries. I think as well, like having God at the center. So, praying. I have a sleeping St. Joseph statue by my bed, and that's a devotion I have a lot. So, if I do meet someone and I feel excited about him, I'll write sleeping St. Joseph a letter, and I'll just say, please help me to be, detached to the outcome, but to also be very open if this is God's will and, pray for this. And I think that helps me have a more measured approach, and it helps me feel like I'm dating in community, even if it's with the communion of saints, because I'm asking for their intercession and things. So that definitely has just helped me to feel like I'm not alone, because I think that very beginning part of dating where you're in a bit of a bubble, it's like one-to-one, you don't really want to necessarily introduce friends or family at that moment. It can be a bit isolating. So I think having God to pray about that dating journey is, transformative.
And what hopes do you have for the future?
For the future of dating?
For your future, for the future of dating? It's a wide question for you.
Yeah, so I'm really starting to, I think that I had a few times where I thought, this hasn't happened for me yet, and it just might not. And I think because of that, I was trying to convince myself, maybe it's not my vocation, and maybe, I'm called to be a single layperson. And I realized that was coming from a place of self-defense. Like I was just kind of like, I just want to say this and I'm going to be really public about it so that if it doesn't happen, it's not embarrassing. Like it was intentional. And I think recently I've actually been leaning more into, but the desire is so strong. And I just don't think God would do that. And I also don't think God necessarily would put me in so many opportunities to talk about dating if I really was never going to have any, very good expertise in it. So I'm leaning more into just excitement and what? Maybe it's going to happen at 50. Maybe it's going to happen at 60. I don't know. I literally don't know. And I give that to God, and I try to stop being so self-reliant, white knuckling, and being because every birthday when you're single and you don't want to be is painful. You wake up and you're like, bah! Especially when you're seeing your friends and they're hitting all these milestones, marriage, babies, and you feel that lack. So I don't want to say it's not hard, but I think my hope for the future is just being okay, God, I'm going to work with you on this, but I'm not going to be unnecessarily, desperate for an outcome. I just want to see, where I'm going to be. But I think admitting that is okay to really say, I really do want to be married and have a family. And I believe God is going to fulfill that promise.
So what thing do you wish you knew before you started dating?
Oh my gosh, so much. I really just wish I knew that knowing yourself is so incredibly helpful when you start your dating journey, because it's one thing when you like someone and you enjoy being with them, but if you really don't know what the vision is for your life, and of course that's going to change and evolve, and I think faith is such a good grounding for that, because you already just have a foundation of what it is. Because the problem is, in the past I didn't truly know my own convictions and my own values, so I didn't know what I stood for. And that meant I didn't really know who I was compatible with. So I think something I wish I knew was, that value system, and then dating from that place would have definitely saved me a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of heartbreak. So that's something I wish I could tell my younger self, and what I would love to tell young women today.
And what are you most grateful for?
I'm just so grateful for the gift of faith. Even though it came to me a little bit later, it just helps to be the compass for everything. I think without that, it's really easy. I used to be a magazine journalist, and we would always talk about these social trends, relationship trends. And it was so easy to live in this very cyclical way where you're just reactive. You're just reacting to everything rather than actually having a response that's rooted in something, that's very tangibly objective and forever. So yeah, the gift of faith has been amazing.
Thanks for listening to Things I Wish I Knew. I know this episode is going to stay with me because of the way that Delphine talks about the need for emotional attraction as well as physical attraction. I think quite often in modern society, that need for physical attraction comes first, but it just really resonated with me. How about you? We'd love to hear more about how Delphine's story resonated with you, and why not also tell us if you're facing an experience you wish you knew how to look at differently. It might just be something we can help with. And you can find out about this theme and others by going to thinkingfaith.org. Thank you again for listening, and I hope you'll join me again next time on Things I Wish I Knew.